Hey everybody, welcome to our 9th episode of Pointers with the Pros. I'm Jeff Jenkins.
I'm Kaylin Starr, and boy do we have a treat for you guys. We got to sit down with Mark Winger, who is the owner of Kentucky Blue Blast. Now, Mark's story is actually pretty interesting. He got into Dustless Blasting when COVID hit really heavy. He got furloughed, and the future just seemed kind of up in the air for him. So he thought it was the perfect opportunity to take matters into his own hands and start his own business. So I will let Mark tell you guys a little bit about how he got started with Dustless Blasting.
Well, for starters, my name is Mark Winger. I own Kentucky Blue Blast. I've been in business now about 15 months. I started, I found out about you all. Gosh, it's been somewhere back in 2018. Wow. I was watching a lot of car shows, was very interested, started watching your videos like everybody, and started, really looking into it, thinking if something ever happened with my job or if there was something came up or maybe I just wanted to do my own business, that this was an option. And, well, as I have told you before, or may have told you before, back in 2020, COVID appeared and, I lost my job. Well, technically I was laid off for 90 days. They did what they call, the 90-day furlough. And I was in sales for a major auto parts manufacturer. 2 days before I was supposed to go back to work, they called me and said that my position had been eliminated.
Wow.
So I was forced at that time to, do I want to stay in the same field? Do I want to do what I want to do, work for somebody else? Do I want to just go work for myself? And really, this is the third time in my life that a corporate decision has affected the outcome of my life. And so I kind of jumped in with both feet. It was about a week later, I flew to Houston and looked at your all's equipment, met with Lewis, and we did the demo and sat down and talked. You all had already sent me an invoice for the machine. And so really about 2 weeks later, I believe it was, I drove down, picked it up, and started in the business around August 1st of 2020.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really important about owning your own business is you have that security with Dustless Blasting, and it just gives you that confidence to get out there. But actually, Mark had no experience with sandblasting before, so I wonder what kind of learning curve did he have?
Yeah, absolutely, and he touched on it as far as getting to know the machine and actually blasting is super easy. But when it comes to deciding what pressure to use, deciding what media to use, he said that learning curve was a bit like a rainbow. I'll let him tell you guys a little bit about that when he first started out and how that went for him.
I was actually worked as an automotive tech for a Ford dealership for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So I was a ASE Master Certified Tech. I used different equipment, been around cars, did all kinds of work. Never used a sandblaster, really didn't know much about it until I saw it on TV. One thing I will also say as a learning curve, I don't ever believe that there's any two surfaces that are exactly the same. You're gonna constantly have to adjust. You're going to constantly have to change how the machine, the flow, the pressures, the media, how close you're to it. It's just a lot of things. There's a lot of variables. So that's one of the things I learned too, is just that you can't just go set the machine one way and it'd be good for every job.
Right.
That was a learning curve. So yeah, there was quite a bit.
And we think that is so awesome that Mark went into this business not having any experience with sandblasting, and now he's a pro. He has taken on so many different jobs and has actually worked his way into the pool world. He's a pool expert now, which we'll talk about later, but he had no experience blasting pools. He thought he was gonna be an automotive guy, and he just went where the work was, and that's what we love to see here when people start their own business. So way to go, Mark. We love that, and we wanted to touch a little bit about competition. Mark said that when he was doing his research, he noticed there were some people in his area, and he views competition completely different than most. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so competition isn't necessarily a bad thing. In Mark's case, all the guys that encounter pools and they hate them, they send them Mark's way. So that's kind of a good thing. So let's hear what Mark has to say about his experience of competition.
I did my research. I kind of looked at the area. There was a couple people around. I felt like I could kind of find my niche and find my own customers. There was enough to go around. What's funny is I have a different view on competitors than a lot of people. I tell everybody, I did a video a while back on YouTube about the 800, and I told people to call me if they're thinking about getting into business. And sure enough, for a long time, I was getting 2 or 3 calls a week from people wanting to get into business. which was fine. But every call, I knew how it would go. I would spend about an hour to an hour and a half on the call with them, answering all their questions. One of the biggest things come up is the competition. So I told them my view is different. I said, I don't look at people as being competition. I would go out there and get to know them.
Yeah.
Call them, find out who they are, and get to know them, because one day you may help them. They may help you. You may have a breakdown. You can use their equipment, whatever it is, they're going to be your help, your friends, I guess. And so I got to know, there's 3 within 50 miles of me that I've gotten to know real well. Awesome. And 2 of them so far have helped me out on jobs, on big jobs. And it's great. Yeah, it's great. I just like to get to know the community. There was another local gentleman that I had called. We talked on the phone, but we never actually did any work together. The funny part was one of my biggest jobs is in pools, and that's a whole nother story. But the pool work, the other guys don't want anything to do with pools. They said they hate it. They don't want it. They said, any pools we get, we'll send your way. The cool part is they send me work, I send them work. Because the funny part about people that call, sometimes I get calls from way out of my area that I know I may not have time, or I know a guy that's closer. So I'll call him and say, hey, do you want to do this job? And he'll end up picking it up because it's right down the road from him. The other way, if he's too busy, he's sent me jobs. And it may have been in my area or a little out of my area. So it's kind of weird how it works, because he gets calls from my areas, I get calls from his areas. It works out okay. It works out really well.
And we think that is such a smart way to look at competition in the area, Mark. Like Mark said, just because there's someone near you, it does not mean that they're going to be taking on the same jobs or the same clientele. So really finding your niche and being open to taking on whatever need is in your area, that's what's going to make you successful, not worrying about if there's a competitor near you. That doesn't necessarily matter with this business, because the machine is so versatile. You can take on whatever need is going on. But moving right along, one of Mark's favorite things about owning a Dustless Blasting business is the community. And so he really harped on the contractor group and why that has worked out for him.
Yeah, so the contractor group for him has been really key. He was able to reach out to other contractors, and he just so happened to find one of the best, Patrick Grimes. And he was able to ask him all about pools, how to do pools, what kind of media to use. It really helped him through it. So that contractor group has been a really big key for him. And even furthermore, they actually built a little bit of a relationship. So a little bit later down the road, Patrick Grimes even invited Mark out to help him with a mega yacht.
That's right, and we are going to go over that the next episode on Pointers with the Pros, because that project was a massive undertaking, and they learned so much from that project that Mark really wanted to go over that on the next episode of Pointers with the Pros. But he definitely said that if you're hesitant about getting into this industry, really not to be, because once you get plugged into this community, everyone is so willing to help. Like you were talking about with Patrick. Patrick was the pool pro back in the day, and he's the one who really helped Mark get started. And now Mark is the one that people go to as well for pools. So that's just a super neat thing to see. That is all because of the contractor group on Facebook.
Thanks to you all for having the Contractors Group Facebook page, so that's awesome. And everybody that I tell that calls me about getting into business, I said, one of the things that you're going to find out is they have a great Facebook page, and there's several people from across the country that are real active on there, and you can ask questions, and there's usually somebody that knows something about what you're needing to know. And I said, I'm starting to become kind of the pool expert, I guess you could say, and yeah. Patrick was when I first started. So that's how we got to know each other. I contacted him because he was the only one I could find that did pools. And I got a call from a pool company literally within the first week of being open, asked if I could do pools. And so the very first job I did, I had to go up to Dayton, Ohio, which was like 2 hours away from my home. And it was scary. I mean, honestly, it was the first pool I ever did. I went and looked at it, but I didn't do a test blast, and I didn't really have my equipment. So when I went up there, I had to be loaded for everything. This was my first big job out of town. So I called him and we talked, and I sent him pictures, and we got to know each other. And he was great. He said, look, he said, when I got started, he said, there was nobody online anywhere that I could find that was doing pools. He said, I had to do it all myself. He said, I will help you with anything you need to know. So it was great. So me and him hit it off. Of course, he's called me on some stuff. Then we just kind of kept in touch. So over the next year, About once a week, and once every 2 or 3 weeks, we would talk or send messages back and forth, see how we're doing. Or I'd joke, I'd send him screenshots of my truck and when it was 35 degrees and he was down there in 85 degrees, stuff like that. So it just got to be a joke. He'd say he's wearing shorts and I'd show me all bundled up with everything. And so anyway, we got to know each other really well. And I kept joking about coming down because of the weather, coming down to Florida and working. And so I guess he finally took me up on it and said, hey, I've got this big boat to do, and sent me pictures. I was like, oh my gosh, that thing's huge. I was like, I've been around boats almost my whole life. I've never seen a boat up close except for a cruise liner it's that big, right, let alone actually get to work on one. So yeah, so he called me and we worked it out. The time frame, there was some juggling back and forth with some time frame, the boat coming in, the port, all that kind of stuff. But once we did, we got to work and wow, it was an experience for sure. I learned a lot and it was a lot of fun. I know Patrick had mentioned a gentleman by the name of James Martin from HR Blasting in Pensacola. He actually came down to work on another project. Ended up, it was another boat, a much smaller boat. But while he was there, we finished up with the big boat. I went over and helped him finish the small boat. So now I got another connection. I met another good guy and we talk on a regular basis now ourselves. So it's really cool. I think the community that you all have put together with the contractors group is great, because I really think there's a lot of good people that want to help each other, and they're all like me that have either just started or maybe only been in business a couple of years, that knows how hard it is to get information. And just getting to meet and network with these guys all over the country, you never know the opportunities, you never know what you're going to learn. And I work by myself, so I mean, I only know what I know. Right. Sometimes working with other people, even if you're just there while they're doing a job, you'll see the equipment set up differently. They use a different technique. It's just good to be around other people to constantly learn, to see how other people do things.
So now that Mark's a pool pro, we asked him several things, like what kind of pools he does, what kind of coatings he's encountered, and even what type of media he uses.
And he actually had something really unique to say about what type of media he uses. So first, he uses 30/60 crushed glass, but he said the most important thing is to have media that's readily available in your area. He said it's, you could get yourself in a bind if you're having to ship media from far away, and that's, slowing you down from starting a project. And he actually has a really unique situation where he has a friend who owns his own crushed glass business, and that's where he gets all of his media from his closest friend growing up. So I'll let Mark talk a little bit about that.
I've done 13 pools in like 13 months. Apartment complex pools is what most of them. So they're big. They weren't small residential pools. They were pretty good size.
So what is it about pools? I know you've obviously done so many.
I feel like I've gotten pretty good. I know what it's going to take to get set up, and I know what the cleanup's going to be like, and I know how to do it. I guess you could say that's like the easiest for me. They pay good. I really like that part. They pay good. The pools we have here, which are, I guess, similar just about anywhere, we have the same mixture of stuff. They have fiberglass pools, they've got concrete pools. The ones I'm doing are concrete pools that have plaster over them, and then they get painted. There could be 2 or 3 layers of paint. There might be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You just don't know. Some of these pools are so old, the paint has so many layers, and they're cracking so bad and falling apart that they have to be completely stripped down so they can go back in. And the pool company is actually a plaster company. They go in and replaster the pool. If they put plaster on top of any paint, it'll fail, it won't hold. They'll lose $10,000 worth of stuff inside a pool. It'll just start flaking off. So it has to be stripped down to bare plaster. Some pools can take 2 days, 1 to 2 days. Some take a week. I had one took 3 weeks, unfortunately, but it just all depends on the size and the paint stuff. And that's another pro pointer I know other people have mentioned. Test blasting is very important. You can kind of schedule your own time. You can schedule to do it, but there's not a big rush. Like, they know I'm doing them. Like last year, I did 6 pools from September to December. So there was a shutdown. Nobody's using the pools anyway.
Right.
So as long as I got it done, I could do it at my own pace and get it done and still do good, still make money, and nobody was standing over my back saying, hey, it's got to get done, So that was nice. Working by myself, it takes a little longer. The cleanup can take a little longer. I actually have a friend of mine, that's another story. A friend of mine owns a glass company, and he started crushing glass. he's 5 miles away from me where he crushes his glass, and it's tempered glass that they use in like commercial glass, or like you would use like your windows, your house, your shower door, and stuff like that. It's really hard glass. And so I started using his, they call it their medium. It's like a 30-60. It's kind of a coarse, it's a lot more coarse than the 40-70. It just does, it's so sharp and so hard that it just does such a good job. And it's so readily available. That's what I use most of the time. It was a childhood friend that I worked for his dad, you know, back when I was a teenager. And now here it is. He owns a glass company. He had scrap glass, had 2 years ago, had found out that people were blasting with it and started crushing glass. And so he's got a whole kind of a small warehouse with this big gigantic machine in it that crushes glass. And so I use a lot of his stuff when I do pools especially.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for episode 9 of Pointers with the Pros, but make sure to tune in next time where we're gonna look at how Mark and Patrick teamed up to tackle a mega yacht.
That's right, and thank you, Mark, so much for all the awesome advice that you shared with our followers. In the meantime, guys, if you have any questions or wanna learn more about Dustless Blasting, visit dustlessblasting.com or leave your questions in the comment section below. We'll see you next time.